So we're going to get started on 6-4, parts 3 and 4. The first ones are going to get into our geometry base. And guys, we've done some geometry before, and it's very clear who has seen some of it and who has not. You're supposed to get some of these basic things when you're in middle school, but some of your teachers did not do a great job, mainly because they're uncomfortable with geometry. So a lot of them tend to skip over it. So we're going to go through and set this up and hopefully make these not too bad for you. So we're talking about the perimeter of a rectangle. The perimeter of a rectangle is the outside of a rectangle. So the very first thing you need to do is draw a rectangle. Guys, in geometry, we draw a picture for almost everything. If you do not have one, draw one. Put one on there. When you have a rectangle, you have a width here and here. You have a length here and here. Guys, 99% of the time, I'm going to tell you to always make sure that you understand that X and Y are what, you can put them in any order. When you're doing this, I would suggest that when you do this, you put them in the order they come in. Okay, I've talked about that. That's really important. So we start off by defining our variables. X equals, since length is the first word that appears, I would say X would equal our length. And Y would equal our width, because it comes second. When we start looking for a sentence, we start looking at the words in the problem. It says the length of the rectangle is twice the width. So the length, X, is, what do we put down for is in that case? Equals. Perfect. And then twice the width would be 2 times the width, which in this case would be 2 times Y. Guys, this is one that's probably going to be solved by substitution because it already says X equals. You can already put a box around that and you've got that ready to go. The other part of this we've got to get is use the information in the very first sentence. The perimeter of the rectangle is. If you do not know this, write this down. The perimeter formula for a rectangle is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Because guys, there's 2 lengths and 2 widths, and if you add them all up, that's the formula for it. Alright? So it tells us our perimeter. We know what the perimeter is. It is 78 equals 2. Anyway, just go on me. Thank you, man. We're getting started on notes, okay? We had some Zoom issues, so you're not too far behind. Okay? So 2 times the length is going to be 2x plus 2 times the width is going to be 2y. Guys, all you're doing is replacing the width and the length and the width with the x and the y. That's it. So when you set this problem up, it's already screaming to be solved by substitution. You can already put a box around this. We're going to take and plug that in where the X is in this problem. So we're going to rewrite this as 78 equals 2 parentheses. Guys, you got to be careful because there's 2's in more than one location. Don't mess this up. There's a 2 in front. And then what you're plugging in for the X is 2y plus 2y. Got to be careful. There's a lot of 2's in that problem. You get very easily confused by that. From there, that's going to be 78 equals, guys, 2 times 2y is 4y plus 2y. When we combine like terms, we've got to combine the 4y and the 2y. Absolutely. Hold on one second. I'll explain. Let me finish solving. I'll go back and talk about it. 4y and 2y is a total of 6y. And y'all have the calculators. What's 78 divided by 6? 13. So 13 equals y. Guys, go up here. Put that 13 next to this so that when you try to write your sentence, it's really easy and you don't get mixed up in all that kind of stuff. Hold on, I'll go back over in a second. Put your mask on, please. So from there, you take and you plug that back in. And that's going to give you X equals 2 times whatever Y was. In this case, Y is 13. So X is going to equal 26. That's your length. Okay, I had again. 2 questions. I got one here, and I'll get you next, okay? Because that one kept coming a second ago. So the whole idea behind this formula is that when you're doing perimeter, I don't know how big my thing is. Oh, it's not bad. You have 2 lengths. That's where the 2L comes from. And perimeters, you're just adding up all the sides. All right. And 2 widths. In this case, here and here, which 2 widths. So instead of calling them L and W, we made our length and our width X and Y. So those go in instead of 2L and 2W, they're 2X and 2Y. You're welcome. Yes, sir. How did I get that? I took and plugged that in. What I did was took this X right here, and I replaced it with what's in my box. Why did I do that? Because that's what X is equal to. So I took that X, that's 2Y, and I replaced it right here in this parentheses. That's what went in to replace or substitute. That's why we call it substitution. Substitute in for that X. All right? And I leave the rest of the equation just like it was. Notice the rest of the equation, the 2 and the plus 2Y stays exactly the same. That part doesn't change. The only thing I'm doing is replacing that X with the 2Y. Guys, thank you for asking those questions. Now is the time, during the notes, while we're going over it. I appreciate that. Okay, now, we have our information. We just need to put it in sentence form. So it says, find the dimensions of the rectangle. Since we did them in length and width, we would say, the dimensions, if I could spell, dimensions of the rectangle. It's a word answer, guys. It's a word problem. Word answer. You're going to have to type answers like this on your EOC. I keep trying to explain that EOC is not an all multiple choice test. It's not. That's why I told you to take the PSAT seriously on that day, because it's all multiple choice. The EOC is not. So, the dimensions of the rectangle are 26 centimeters for length and 13 centimeters for width. And guys, you can check that so easily. You plug that back into the problem. 2 times 26 plus 2 times 13, it gives you 78. It's really easy to check these problems. Guys, that's not the only way to word your answer. Please understand your sentence answer on this is going to be different than mine. You can say the length of the rectangle is 26 centimeters and the width of the rectangle is 13 centimeters. Tons of different ways to word that and still be correct as long as you give me all the information. Okay. Anybody on this geometry before I go to the next one? We have another geometry problem, but I think, is the next one a triangle? I think that's what I did. Because I know they wrote that problem on the USC. That type of problem. Okay, guys, so here we go. The perimeter of an isosceles triangle, guys. This requires you to know words that you were supposed to get in middle school, but some of you don't know. What does isosceles mean? Oh. 2 of the same length. The other one doesn't, it can be shorter or longer, it doesn't matter, but it has to be that there's 2 that are the same. So write that down, guys. In an isosceles triangle, 2 of them are going to be the same. Alright, so we're going to draw that. Here's a triangle where 2 of the sides are the same. Those little marks mean that they're congruent to each other. Those are called congruency marks. It says 4 times the length of the non-congruent side. So it talks about the non-congruent side, guys, the side that's different. That's what those words, all that big word means, is that the non-congruent side, the one that's different down here, is the first one they talk about. So I'm going to call this one X, and I'm going to say X is equal to the non-congruent side. How did I decide that? Because it came first in the problem. We talked about this. It doesn't matter except in order to be consistent and be the same every time, go with what appears first in the problem. What do they talk about first? For my y, the only thing left is the two sides that are congruent to each other. So we're going to call those the congruent sides. Guys, listen to me. You're going to need to just think a little bit. Okay? If I'm getting the perimeter here of an isosceles triangle, there's one side that's x, so we would write x, and there are two sides that are the same, so it would be 2y. That would be the perimeter of an isosceles triangle. Add the side that's different plus the two sides that are the same. So if we're going to use that, the perimeter in this case is 56 equals 2, well, y'all would do it the other way because y'all always stay in XY order. I apologize, that's my fault. X plus 2y. I apologize. I don't care about order because I do this all the time, but I try to keep it consistent for y'all, so we'll stay in order, the x plus the 2y. Because you'll see this one I would solve by actually elimination. You'll see what I mean in a minute. For the other part of it, it says 4 times the length of the non-congruent side. Guys, which one's the non-congruent side, x or y? X. So 4 times x. Decreased by, all that means is to put what? Minus, subtraction, whatever you want to say. 2 times the length of the congruent side. So 2 times what? Yep. And it says is, that means equals in this case, 24. But guys, look at your problems. What's the only thing wrong with them? What's not there so that we can just do elimination? Say, well, you can flip it around. Yeah, you need it to be moved around. Guys, I would rewrite it before you did anything. I'd make it x plus 2y equals 56. And 4x minus 2y equals 24. Can you see that it actually already eliminates? This problem is actually very easy to solve because you don't even have to multiply anything to eliminate here. The y's already cancel out. Someone's going to make this mistake, though. Please listen to me. What is x plus 4x? 5x. Please don't forget that. Equals, and then on this side, 56 plus 24 will be 70, 80. And it is, okay. And then we got to divide by 5, and y'all tell me that one. 16? Okay. So 16 is going to be our non-congruent side. 16 is the non-congruent side. Guys, geometry is foreign to y'all. This is what we do all next year. We're going to be doing this. This is what we do. So you take that, you plug it back into any one of your equations. I would plug it back into this one because the x is just by itself. So I would plug it back in here. 56 equals 16 plus 2y. That's where I personally would plug in. Hey, Micah, just join us. We're on example 2. If you need me to go back at the end and let you see those slides, I can absolutely do that. Okay, just let me know when we get to the end. We had some Zoom issues this morning. So then minus 16 minus 16, it's going to put us at 40 equals 2y. Divide by 2, and 20 equals y. So again, when you're answering the question that they ask, they want you to find the length of each side. They gave them in the order the non-congruent side, then the congruent side, so I'm just going to take it straight from this information. The non-congruent side is, what unit are we talking about? Feet. So the non-congruent side is, we decided it was 16, so it is 16 feet. And the congruent sides, guys, it's not one side. Please don't let something so silly as not putting down that you're talking about both of them. The congruent sides are 20 feet. All right. Questions, concerns, anything about what we just saw? Before we go on to a different type of problem. Guys, geometry requires you to think differently than anything you've ever done before. It may be very simple because you've seen this. It may be very challenging because you haven't, but you cannot ignore the geometry. You're going to be doing this, a lot of you, next year or the next. You have to have geometry to graduate. So you got to make sure you try to think that way. I know it's different because I'm the only teacher that teaches algebra and geometry in this whole school. Everybody else that teaches geometry does not teach algebra. There are two different ways of thinking about things. Okay? Okay, here we go. So from here, it says, this is one we've done before, guys, except for the idea that it's break even. The concept of how to set up the problem as far as the information, not bad. Most people do well on this. It's the fact that we have to set it up differently that's going to cause people to have to think a little bit and it be a little bit different for them. So we're going to be talking about a fashion designer. We're going to be talking about them producing hats, and we're going to be talking about what they need to do to break even based on having to spend so much money for them to happen, for them to produce them and to sell them. So here's the concept. It says they're making and selling hats. The material for each hat costs $5.50. That is what it costs them. They sell for $12.50. That's how much they get for every hat. They have to spend, guys, $1,400 on advertising, and they want to know what to do to break even. Okay, listen to me. That break even is key. That's going to be every one of these problems looks like this and does this specific thing. So if you see break even, you know to set it up like this. So X, we want to know how many hats. X is just going to be the number of hats. That's it, number of hats. Okay. Now Y is going to be a little bit different than any of the ones we've had before. So listen when you write this out. Y is going to represent your income in one equation and your expenses in the other equation. So the money coming in or the money going out. All right. So let's start with the income. Guys, how much are they getting for every hat that they sell? $12.50. That's what it is. The money coming in is 12.5 or 12.50. It doesn't matter if you want to put the zero there, times the number of hats. That's how much income is coming in. The money they are spending, which we're still going to call Y equals, is going to be the money they have to put out to do this. So how much does it cost them to produce every one of the hats? 5.5 X. What else do they have to spend money on? Yep, that $1,400 on advertising. So there's also a $1,400 charge that is an expense. Guys, when do you break even? When your income equals your expense, outcome, either way you want to say it. So guys, when the two things are equal, that's when you break even. So what do we need to do with these two amounts? Someone said it. Guys, both of these are Y equal. Since they're both equal to Y, they have to be equal to each other. Guys, if two things, let's say 5 plus 1 is 6, Okay, 3 plus 3 is 6. That also means that 5 plus 1 equals 3 plus 3. Okay? If two things are equal to the same thing, they must be equal to each other. That's actually transitive property of equality. That's an actual mathematics property, but that's not the point. The point is that you need to understand, because we want these two things to equal each other, to break even, all you do is set these two amounts equal to each other. And when we do that, watch what happens. 12.5x equals the 5.5x plus 1400. We just eliminated one variable because we just took and set both these y equals to each other. When we solve that and minus 5.5x from both sides, what's 12.5 minus that 5.5? 7x equals 1400. Divide by 7, divide by 7, and x equals, what is it? 200? Listen to me. This is the only time that this happens. When you're trying to break even, the only thing you want to know about is the number of hats. The income and the expense are going to be the same amount. We don't have any information asking us about that. Because we don't have anything asking us about that, then understand we don't need the other variable. You can plug it back in and get what y equals, but it's not going to matter. So because of that, the number of hats would be, and then you just say, what was the name? The designer must sell, they didn't give a name, so we just got to say that. 200 hats to break even. Now guys, in the real world, things are more complicated. You've got to pay for a lot more things. You've got to pay for rent for your space or your creation of your online thing. This is just a very simplified version of the idea of profit. But it does always come down to how much are you spending and how much are you bringing in. And when are those two things equal? There's a lot more variables usually, but we stuck with 2 because we're doing basic ones. Okay. Questions before you try to set up the next one? Okay, guys, go to that next one then. Anybody still writing? I don't want to go till you're done. Anybody still writing on this one? Everybody home okay? Okay, here we go. Y'all set this one up, guys. I want an x equals a y equals, and I want you to set up your 2 equations. Go ahead and do that right now, guys. It's the same concept. I told you, if you see break even, you got to do the same thing every time. Check that out and see if you can get that set up. Okay. Use the other example. That's why we set it up. You're going to have to set these up on your own when you get to these. What do we talk about? How much are they making? 80 cents cost them to put them, plus they have to pay initial cost of $8.64 to set it up. Okay, guys, there's my two equations. Take a look and see if that's where you were at. The whole idea, and guys, the defining the variable. This is 2 points for every problem on your test. If you do not define your variables, you won't get any credit. That's 7 times 2, that'd be 14 points off your next test that you got nothing for. Please make sure that you write them out and you write them out correctly. Yes, sir. 864x. Okay, so it's not talking about 864 being the cost of each individual book. It says the packaging and binding for each book costs 80 cents. So each book, the one that's multiplied times the number of books, is the 80 cents. The 864 is just the initial cost. That means to set up the book, to get the printing set up, to do everything he needed to do, he had to pay $864. But he doesn't pay $864 for every time he sells a puzzle book. If he did, guys, and he only sells the books for $2, would he ever be able to make any money? No. So the 864 is the one that is completely by itself. The 80 cents is the one that goes with the X because it's for each individual puzzle book. Good question. Okay, anybody else? Okay, guys, what do we do with these two amounts since they're both Y equals? Set them equal to each other. It's the same thing every time. You set them equal to each other. Perfect. 2x equals 0.80x plus 864. Good. Oh, we're going to have decimals, guys. Don't panic. You can have decimals. Okay, it's money. So minus 0.80x or 0.8x. I like 0.8, but y'all tend to write 0.80. So what is 2 minus 0.8 or 0.80? 1.2 x equals 864. Then we divide by 1.2, divide by 1.2, and x equals how many how many puzzle books this time do we need to sell? 700 and... Is it 20? Is that what you're saying? Okay, sorry. I was trying to listen for a number after it, and it wasn't. It was 720 was what I misunderstood. I was waiting for something else to come after that. So 720 is going to be the number of puzzle books. This is the only one out of all the types that we will do that you do not have to have the other part of it. Let me say that again. You don't need income or expense because they don't ask about that. The only thing they say is how many copies must be sold to break even. So the puzzle expert must sell 720 copies. Now guys, if you don't put this part, you are going to get docked. What does he have to say for 720? What does he have to do? What does that get him? To break even. Thank you. Oh. My email is, my whole Outlook is going crazy right now. Okay, so he must sell 720 copies to break even. Now, the last time we're going to talk about today, some people already know a lot about because they do some things that will deal with this. This deals with flying. It's going to deal with, to be honest, if you run track, you're going to run against the wind or with the wind. You know when you run, especially short distance people, if you run into a wind, your time's going to be very different than when you run with a tailwind. It's going to deal with flying and how fast you can get somewhere when you're flying with that kind of information, when you have help from the wind or when you're getting challenged by the wind. So canoeing, kayaking, going with the speed of the water, going against you or for you. So that's kind of the concept and where we're headed from this. So as we take a look at this, it starts off talking about a traveler who is flying from Charlotte to Los Angeles. That would be a long flight. Absolutely. There we go. So, we've got a ground speed of 550 miles per hour. At the same time, another person is getting on a plane and going from Los Angeles back to Charlotte, and their ground speed is 495 miles per hour. It says the airspeed of each plane is the same. Guys, that really matters. The airspeed of each plane is the same. Right? They want to know what is the airspeed and what is the wind speed. So they just told you exactly what they want. They want the airspeed and the wind speed. So x equals, in order, the airspeed, how fast is it going through the air, and y equals the wind speed. Okay. So what the pilot has the airspeed set on is the same. What happens though is the wind's either going to help them or it's going to hurt them. So as we look at this, we're going much faster here, so that wind is helping them in this first one. They're getting there faster. Guys, going at a much faster rate. So you're going to take that airspeed and you are going to add, it's going to push it along. And it's going to add the wind speed to it, and that's going to give you a speed of 550 miles per hour. What they're flying at plus the wind pushing behind them makes them go 550. How do I know that's the one I put plus on? Because guys, it's faster, it's bigger. The one that's bigger is going to be plus. The one that's smaller is going to be minus, because the wind is going to fight against them. Okay? So when you're coming back from Los Angeles to California, you're fighting against the wind. In that case, that's going to be the airspeed minus the wind speed, because it's going to be fighting against you and slowing you down. That's going to equal a total of 495 miles per hour. Now, these may be some of the ones that you have to think a little bit more to set up, but these are some of the absolute easiest you will solve out of everything we do, because guys, all you do is draw your line. The y's already cancel out. Here's one thing that somebody's going to make a mistake on. What's x plus x? 2x. Yeah. Most people, if they're going to make a mistake, they're going to write x there and get the wrong answer because they do that. That's going to give you, what is that, 1045? Okay. And then divide by 2. Yes, it's going to give you a decimal. Do not panic. We had decimals in that week. Okay, this is the speed that this is going. It's a real life thing. It's going to be 500 and something. 0.5. There you go. So the wind speed is 522.5. And guys, it's miles per hour. If you want to put it down, that's the unit that they've been using, miles per hour. It's cruising. Right. The wind speed that's out there is going to be, take this, plug it into, guys, plug it into the easier equation. The easier equation would be the one with the plus in it. So it would be 500, I'm plugging in right here to this x. 522.5 plus y equals 550. You're going to minus 522.5 minus 522.5, and that's going to give you a wind speed of, you tell me when you do the math. 27.5. That's not a slow wind, guys. I mean, it's not fast, but that's definitely going to help or hurt you. And it's going to push the plane around a little bit. Alright, anybody have any questions before we write our sentence? Just on the setup, anything about it? Because the next one is like the same concept. You're just dealing with water instead of air. Same exact concept. Okay, so let's write this question. What does it say? The airspeed of the plane is, what's the airspeed? The airspeed is 522.5 miles per hour. And you can write out miles per hour, guys, if you don't want to put the mi/h. That's just the way they put the unit on there, so that's the way I did it. So miles per hour, and the wind speed is 27.5 point decimal 50 miles per hour. And my email is really mad at me. Interesting. Don't know what made my email so mad. See if we can get this working. Okay, guys. Anybody before we go to our last thing then? We've got our last problem to do today. Anybody have a question? Anybody still writing? Some of y'all are setting up the next one. I can see you doing it. That's 3. Okay, guys, here we go. Last one. It is going to be the same concept. You row upstream at a speed of 2 miles per hour. You travel the same distance downstream at a rate of 5 miles per hour. Guys, why do you go faster down? Because the water is what? Pushing you. Absolutely. You're not fighting against the current. So, what would your rowing speed be in still water? That means if you were rowing on a flat lake where there was no movement at all, very rare. And what is the speed of the current? So we're going to start off with x equals and y equals and decide what we call those. Well, guys, what would your rowing speed be in still water? So rowing speed in still water. It's not that complicated. Use what they tell you. I mean, just use their questions. They tell you what they want. And then they want the current speed or the speed of the current. Most people, if you say it the other way, get confused. Speed of the current. Okay. So you've got to decide whether you're going to add or subtract. You're going to use x and y each time. That's the easy part. You know what it's equal to. The first one is equal to 2. The second one is equal to 5. These problems are not that bad, guys. You just got to use the information the way it gives it to you. But on the first one, since you're going slower, are you going to add or subtract the y? Subtract. It's making it less, guys. You're fighting against that current. Sorry, I got to hear it, Mama. You're fighting against that current, so you're going to be subtracting. When you're going downstream and you're going faster, you're going to be adding the current to your actual speed. You get help. You go faster. But again, the solving of these is really easy. When you take and cancel these out, you get x plus x is 2x. 2 plus 5, oh, these are even small numbers, 7. Divide by 2, and x equals a decimal. Do not panic, it's real life stuff. So it's going to put it at 3.5 because this is real world problem, so we need to put it like we would put it in the real world. So it's 3.5 miles per hour. I have no idea if that's fast for rowing or not, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's fast. I've never done, I mean, I've been in a kayak and been in a canoe, but not ever on purpose to do something sport-wise. Take and plug that back in. I would personally plug it into the one with the plus to make life easy. Guys, no negatives makes life easier. So it'd be 3.5 plus y equals 5 minus that 3.5. And we end up at y equals, you tell me, 1.5? Okay, 1.5 miles per hour. Okay, guys, so the last thing we need to do is just write our sentence. And I don't even know if that's a fast current or not. I don't know anything about how fast rivers move at all, so I have no idea. That may be really slow, like lazy river slow. I don't know. So here we go. What would your rowing speed be? So your rowing speed in still water is 3.5 miles per hour. And the speed of the current. Is 1.5 miles per hour. Okay, guys. So, because we did things out of order, I was planning to do this after the break. We'll go over that, but with our issues with the Zoom, we tried to change things around. What we're going to do now then is go ahead and let you get your answers to the last night one corrected. So what I'm going to do is get you to put that away just off to the side. You're going to need it in a minute to go over and do the assignment. But we need to go ahead and go over the homework. So let me go ahead and stop this.